capital. The stimulus bill allows banks to repay as long as they get permission from the primary regulator. There will be no private capital requirement. Once the bank repays the government, Treasury will liquidate the warrants it holds at the current market price. This all goes into effect once President Obama signs the bill. Back to you.
Rich, he's supposed to do that, of course, tomorrow. We're going to squawk about it now with Fox Business contributor Charles Payne, WStreet.com, and CEO Tuttle Wealth Management, Matthew Tuttle, who's been with us all morning as well. Now, I know Rich is reporting that that weakens the president's executive pay limits a little bit. But the other part of it is, as it came up yesterday in the Sunday talk shows, Charles, that the president supposedly now, the administration is wavering a little bit on this and saying, all right, we may sign this bill and then pull back on some of these executive pay limits, while members of Congress, Congressman Frank, certainly Senator Dodd, are saying, oh, wait a minute, we got to enforce these because we need these limits. What do you make of all this back and forth?
Well, there's definitely the big issue here. One of the big issues, aside from the pay, is the power struggle amongst established Democratic leadership, whether it's Dodd, Nancy Pelosi, Harry Reid, Barney Frank, and the White House. It's amazing.
They don't seem to be on the same page.
They really don't, and it's flared out into the open on several occasions. And you have to wonder, over the last 2 or 3 weeks, some of these appearances that the president has made is not just for the benefit of trying to get the GOP in line,
get his own party in line. Let's look at a little bit of what Senator Dodd had to say about this. We'll bring it up on the screen. Saving the financial sector, Senator Dodd says, will never happen as long as the public perceives that there are people getting rich. Save their pay or save capitalism. Matthew, what do you think of this?
I mean, I think what Dodd put into the bill as far as the bonus limits is really not a good idea. I think you're going to lose some of the best and brightest. You're going to get some companies that have taken TARP money wanting to give it back, and you're going to get some companies that need it not wanting to take it.
We want them to give it back, though, don't we?
Well, we want them to eventually give it back when they're done, but you don't want a company that's desperate for money saying, you know, look, we can't live under this structure, so we got to figure out some way to give it back.
And that other issue about talent going other places, where do they go?
They go to companies that haven't taken TARP money. I mean, you could end up losing the best and the brightest, which you don't want to lose. You want the best and the brightest staying at these companies to help turn them around.
Because they made this limit, they made these limits, Charles, stricter than we first thought. It's not just the executive. Sometimes it's just a high earner. So you can get a trader, as we know, on Wall Street that makes a lot more than, you know, $500,000 and a bonus that's a third of that. I mean, a multiple of that. Then now they have to adjust to a different world. But the world is different, isn't it?
The world is different, but you know, we can't indict an entire industry for maybe the problems or the shortcomings of, you know, obviously it was the bigger players in the space that hurt this whole thing, but there are a lot of people, to Matt's point, that didn't do it wrong, and there are a lot of viable businesses out there. And obviously, to your point, you know, if you're a trader, you just pick up your book and move somewhere else because, you know, the average trader is making a lot more money than potentially $700,000 a year.
So it's going to hurt the banks that it's intended to help, is the point.
That is the crazy thing about it. And also the statement by Dodd about people and capitalism. He's got it so backwards. It's really crazy. And, you know, the fact of the matter is that people actually revel when they see other folks doing well, as long as they think they've earned the money. You know, I know, like in my old neighborhood, to hear that Jay-Z makes $100 million, they're not mad at Jay-Z. They're actually happy for him. You know, the same thing. I think obviously Wall Street went beyond the pale when it comes to greed. There's no doubt about that. But I think his correlation between pay and whether capitalism works or not, I think, is off base.
Okay. Charles and Matthew, thank you very much. Guys, we appreciate that. Jenna, back over to you.
Now, time for the recap now. President Obama wants to forget the car czar for the big three automakers. So what does he want instead? We've got that story covered for you, all the developments there. In the meantime, President Obama is poised to sign the $787 billion economic stimulus package. He won't do it in D.C. We'll tell you where he's going to do it in just a moment. And major debt is coming due for SiriusXM, but now a report the future may be in doubt for CEO Mel Karmazin. Tell you all about that as well in just a second. Let's take a look at the markets right now, Ashley, as the European markets are open for business.
Yeah, they are, and you know what? We've been in the same range, Jenna, since the opening bell, down about 0.5% across here in, across London and across the continent, both on the FTSE, the CAC and the DAX. We're seeing a lot of weakness still in the banking stocks. There's renewed concerns there among a number of banks, and also the automakers today, Jenna, moving lower. In reverse, we should say.
Yeah, it's interesting, considering the news about the car czar, Ashley, if that's factoring it in at all, well, we can't only speculate at this point. Let's take a look at our markets closer to home, at least light volume trading for futures, not really much to speak of, but down across the board right now. S&P 500 down about 0.5%. Take a look at oil as well. As we're following commodities, oil was down about 6% last week. It's also down a bit this morning. It was up earlier, though, so that's interesting.